Can you still use a Nikon D700 for professional work? Such a common question. The question that I would ask is, why do you feel the need to even ask that? The Nikon D700 is a legendary camera, and if you watch YouTube videos, you will see reviewer after reviewer taking images with the latest and greatest and blowing them up to several 100% and trying to highlight the differences between this camera and that camera to make you feel that you need something better. All issues, all differences that are irrelevant to professional work, because what everybody forgets is not what you can see when you magnify images to several 100% and compare them on a computer screen, but what your eye can resolve when the image is online or printed and on a wall. So if we're talking professional work, start off with weddings. What will you do with those images? You may print them an album, which may have 8x10, 8x12 images if you go for all nice large images, and they may have 3 or 4 large images on their wall. What will they be? 20x30, 24x36, 30x45, 12 megapixels is more than enough for that. I did recently see a test on YouTube. I won't say which channel it is, but they make a living out of highlighting the faults in cameras. They are the modern day equivalent of the old amateur photographer and practical photography, if any of you are old enough to have read through those magazines, and if you did, by the time you read through the magazine you just felt that you needed better gear, but you don't. 12 megapixels is more than enough. I'll post a link to a chart below and the link to my article with the chart, which actually details the resolution that you need for images of all different sizes, but more importantly the resolution that the eye can resolve. Now you may be thinking, yes, but if I had a D850, Canon R5, Nikon Z7 with their 46-50 megapixels, then I can make giant images. Yes, you can. Will you? Do you? When was the last time you did? If you need something for a specific purpose, that's fine. But here's something interesting. Again, I'll post the link, or maybe even embed the video in my article. It was a video made by F-Stoppers. How many pixels do you need for a billboard? How many do you think? Remember, it is about the detail that our eyes can resolve from a distance. And billboards that are going to be seen from 200-300 feet away don't need anywhere near the same resolution as a 6x4, 7x5, 8x10 A4 magazine that we will look at here. At this distance, our eyes can resolve just under 300 dpi. Now don't confuse dpi with ppi, pixels per inch. Mainly the pixels per inch is the resolution of the image. The dpi is the resolution of the printer that printed it, but we can't even resolve 300 dpi at this distance, and it's not far off that. Hence the reason that the standard for magazine work is 300 dpi. But once you get further away, it drops rapidly. And in the video that I've embedded, they have got a massive billboard. It must be 30 feet long. And the image for that was 3 or 4 megapixels. It's actually incredible. But at the correct viewing distance, it resolves. The quality of the image that our eyes can resolve is no different to looking at a 6x4 image, which is at 300 dpi at this distance. So 12 megapixels is more than enough. What else do you need? Do you need speed? Well, the D700 has a good buffer on it. It can shoot at 5 frames per second as it is. That increases to 8 frames per second, as you probably know if you're even looking at it, when you add the battery pack. But this is a tank, it is heavy, and with the battery pack it gets even heavier. But they are so robust, and there are some lovely ones around, but obviously there's less and less all the time. But if you find one of these with a low shutter count, it will last you 4 years. So if you're into weddings, portraits, that sort of thing, then this is all that you need. If you are into faster photography where you may need to shoot more frames per second, that sort of thing, again, depending what it is. If you do professional sports work, then you would be looking at a D500 or a D4, D5. I wouldn't bother with a D6. That's different. That's because you need the speed of that camera for that purpose. That's different to just wanting to buy a camera so that you can show off. If you want to do that and you can afford to keep up, then by all means do that. And if you are a Sony enthusiast, then basically be expecting to upgrade your camera every 6 to 9 months, because they've turned cameras into mobile phones and they supersede it constantly with something new. Yes, Sony has just about the best autofocusing, not that it makes a terrific amount of difference from the others, but it is noticeably faster, the worst menu system, and their cameras just are not ergonomic for my liking. But then I've been a Nikon fan since I was a kid. I still have my Nikon F3 from the early 80s. If you want to be able to shoot a series of images, you can do a lot worse than the D700. So this is at 5 frames per second. Is that enough? With the battery pack, it becomes 8 frames per second. That should be enough. If you need focus tracking and you do need faster shooting than that, then there are other options, but only consider them if you really need them, not just because you want them. For a portrait shoot, the D700 really can't be beaten. The particular sensor that is in the D700 gives a unique quality to the images. All professional photographers acknowledge this. To this day, it cannot be bettered. And trust me, if you are doing a portrait shoot, then once again, you have more than enough resolution for all but the most ridiculous of images. Again, perhaps you will think to yourself, yes, but what if I need to print a poster print that's like 6 foot by 4, the type that you see on the side of the elevators if you're going in and out of a superstore or mall or something like that. But if you go up close to them, the resolution is actually not that high, even in those images. But if you actually need that resolution, that's fine, but it's not that often that you do, a lot less than you think. And you can go on forever. You can compare this to the D750, the D500, other cameras that are around the 24 megapixels. And yes, if you zoom in, you'll be able to zoom in an extra amount with that image on your PC. But you can do that again. You can then compare that to the D850, Canon R5 and so on, which are double that resolution, and you can still zoom in and you can still get to the point where you're seeing a pixelated image. But then you can compare the 850 and the R5 to the Fuji GFX 100 or the Hasselblad, which are 100 megapixels. Then if you want to go further than that, many professionals still use 4x5 sheet film and 8x10. 6x7 medium format film equates to a resolution of over 400 megapixels, let alone 4x5 and 8x10. These things are used for their specific purpose, not because somebody just wants to use them. There are people, as you know, there is a revival in film, who maybe enjoy going and shooting with a 4x5 or an 8x10 or a Mamiya RB67. that is wonderful. It's art. But if you're talking about pro work, you get yourself a couple of these and you've got everything that you need. The only thing that goes against this camera is that it only takes one memory card. So if you're shooting something that can't be repeated, like a wedding, then I would recommend that you have double the amount of cards, 2 for each camera. You alternate between the cameras, you check them, you take the cards off when you have a break and copy the images just to be certain. 2 memory cards are better for something like a wedding event for that particular reason. Aside from that, this camera is fantastic, and some of the older Nikon lenses are amazing. This one is the 60mm f2 micro. It's like the Swiss Army knife of lenses, especially if, like I have, you've got full frame and a crop frame camera. This lens does different jobs on both cameras. On full frame, it's more or less a standard lens, but it's a macro lens. It's a wonderful portrait lens. It is razor sharp, can't be beaten. It's second to none. Put this onto a crop frame camera, then it has an effective field of view of 90mm and it's sharp. So on a crop frame camera, it's not only a portrait lens, it's a macro lens with an even higher magnification ratio. So this is absolutely fantastic. If you don't want to shell out for zoom lenses, I prefer 2 prime lenses. Perhaps if you're on full frame, if you've got the D700, perhaps a 35 and an 85, and then maybe 1 longer lens can be handy. If you're on crop frame, then my choice would be a 24 and a 50 or 56, and if depending, then maybe you could have one of the Samyang extra wide lenses just for a couple of shots, like, you know, getting the whole church in or whatever the case may be. The moral is, should you be starting out and you want to do professional work, you could go and get yourself a couple of D700 bodies, 2 or 3 Nikon D lenses, and for less than £1,000 you could have the kit that you need to be able to shoot professional work, and guaranteed, provided that you do your job properly, nobody will have any complaints whatsoever. Or you could literally spend thousands and thousands, or borrow thousands and thousands to buy the latest and greatest that won't be noticed by your clients, but will be noticed by your bank, because in 6, 9 months, a year at the most, you're going to have to be selling that for half of what you paid for it, 60% at the most, to upgrade yet again. And then you get caught into the vicious trap of the ever recycling of your cameras, and you go and pay out lots and lots of money, you make big losses on that equipment, and other people who actually don't worry about the latest and greatest will actually enjoy the equipment much more than you have. I've got other older cameras. I've got a D70S lying around somewhere. I'll have to find it. It was my first Nikon DSLR. That is only 6 megapixels. When I get hold of it, I'm going to put a nice lens on it, like Nikon 51.4, and I'm going to go out and take some photographs, and you'll be amazed at what you can get with an older camera. So always think, I've said this before, the magic order of importance is creativity, light, lens, camera. The camera comes last.